Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody. Wow, gets more challenging every day because ever how it was asking me to set it up today, I could barely figure it out. Um, I actually was looking forward to this recording and to my conversation today, and I I think something really exciting is going on, and I think I've been on this planet at other times where, hi, Ann. Sorry, I couldn't get on this morning. Facebook changes how we do this every single time. So I'm still getting used to the setup. But I think something's going on really exciting, and um, I've been up since about 4 putting together some things, but I also have been thinking and and mostly thinking about my own patterns of thought. And thank you, Kaya. I must have been thinking about my own patterns of thought, and even when I say that, even when I say I've been thinking about my own patterns of thought, I've been thinking about my patterns of thought as patterns of thought. So let's see if I can break that down a bit. For instance, I'll give you an example. I realize that when I'm thinking, I'm always thinking about how to apply what I'm thinking to a post or to a conversation, or because I'm psychic, I often think about how that what I'm thinking about or what is on my mind fits with an ongoing future. So today I had this odd thing happen around between 3 and 4 this morning. I woke straight up, totally bright eyed. Amazing, because I didn't go to sleep till 11 or 12, maybe. Still bright eyed. And I realized, imagine with me that you and I are standing at the mouth of a cave, and we're thinking about taking a walk. And imagine that cave is a kingdom unto itself, but that somehow we ended up standing at the edge of the cave, looking out, not turning around and looking in. So somehow our mind got muddled, and when it got muddled, it couldn't think about turning around and looking back in to where we came from. So that's kind of one frame I want to say, and then I'll get to my thinking, how it occurred for me in a minute. And the other thing is, I'm writing this booklet. It's a companion book to the book that's going to get published, You as the Mind of Creation, and about the first 3 dimensions. Basically, first dimension quarks, atoms, molecules, and then the second dimension, basically cells, animal, and also the meta point between atoms, molecules, cells, where there's a both and, like, and then the third dimension is that that is us. But it's also us looking out of the cave, not, and yet we do experience uh, dream states, which are wouldn't be possible if we didn't have a particle field that's non-physical for us to dream in. So we think of kind of like the first 2 dimensions as what was in the cave, and then we think of the third dimension of where we're standing, and then we think of the fourth dimension as beyond that, but it's more inverted than ex, exverted. It's more inverted in the sense that if you think of a spiral, something just includes more, includes more, includes more, includes more. But if we didn't have the beginning of the spiral, we wouldn't have the includes more. I think that made sense. So I realized at 3 a.m. this morning that I've been putting pressure on my neural cortex, you could say, my brain, because I knew it was trying to think in a way that it wasn't thinking. And somehow this morning it flipped on me. And if you think about the spiral and imagine you're standing in front of the cave, then you would pretty much have a 360 degree vision, wouldn't you? If you could think or perceive, let's just not use our outer eyes for a minute, or could perceive in a spiral manner. So we would be perceiving where we're standing, we would be perceiving what we're looking, the landscape, like a panoramic view we're looking out into. We would also see behind our head, and then deeper into the cave and wider into the landscape until we were finally outside the planet and moving out with the stars and down into the atoms and quarks. And somehow it all flipped into that this morning between 3 and 4 a.m. And it's just really cool. And I talked to a friend of mine, actually Kea, yesterday, and she laughed and she said, which is actually kind of the role someone a seer plays, is I kind of get to the landscape of the territory of something that's happening simply because before others get there, and it's not because of any great um, personal attribute. It's how I'm designed, or how the design of this eye is designed. So I don't know, I can't explain it. I just got really excited about that, and I realized that my I could compare my thinking, which is what I'm kind of hoping to trigger in us this morning, our collective. I could trigger my thinking. No, I'm sorry. I could see that my thinking had been like standing at the mouth of the cave and whatever I was contemplating on, I was contemplating in a forward movement. Uh, in other words, a forward movement of looking out and seeing where what I was thinking would apply. But I wasn't thinking where I came from. I don't mean the historic personality. I mean, I wasn't thinking about the cave and the richness of the cave I came from. And that's our inner landscape. I realize we don't think about the richness of our inner landscape, do we? We don't, or haven't. We don't. We're always in some kind of forward thinking. I don't mean forward in time, or we have been in forward thinking. Whether we're thinking about getting up and going to the refrigerator and getting a soda, or whether we're thinking about what we're doing for the day, or whether we're thinking about something we're trying to fix in ourselves. And but the thing I'm excited, no, there isn't, Heather, that's correct. That, but I realized today, especially since the World of Unity call, that there's this language base, that this languageness that was showing up in that in the World of Unity call on Wednesday night. There was a languaging that I couldn't put my fingers on that kind of has been triggering this whole kind of few days, because now it's Friday and that Wednesday was 2 days ago. And I realized that what I was hearing in people speaking was I was hearing their inner landscape, like they were in the cave describing the beauty of where they were standing before they even came out to play. And I think I just did a really good job of that analogy. Um, and somehow this morning, when I bright eyed and bushy tailed woke up, I I don't know how to finish the sentence. It wasn't like I was in a new world. I just think there was something, I think there's something incredibly valuable. I think there's just something incredibly valuable about what's going on. And I think that it has something to do with spiral thinking, spiral presence, or being present to the inner. One of the things that was said in the World of Unity call, because I'm trying to figure out how to language as I'm presencing this, was that the backgrounds become the foreground. But what if the cave, our inner landscape, was always the background? The richness of our inner landscape was always the background. And that we can take it with us now. We can take the richness of our inner cave with us now. And yes, the part I stumbled over as I was talking was, yes, I do think it's a new form of I. I do. I be, probably. So I be in the beauty of my inner world, the richness of my exploration of life. I'm not talking about me, I'm talking about the I. I be in the richness of my exploration of life. I be in my heroine and hero journey. I be in the memory of it. I be in the experience of it. I be in the worth of it and the value of it. I be in the discovery of the discoveries I have made, that I has uh, unearthed in its journey. And yes, it's definitely not the psychological paradigm, which is all about analysis and assessment. You assess yourself. Am I worthy? Do I deserve? Am I able? And I'm saying something has happened in the psyche of human beings. And that I'm not pinning it on the work of Tantra Mat or the field of Tantra Mat. The only reason I can have the conversation is because a group of us have been together for quite a long time. And we've been doing things that give us the access to the perception of things that are occurring, because there's setups, like the World of Unity is a setup, so that when we come into that community call, it's set up to reveal what is occurring or what's rising, not to solve problems, not analytically, not problem solving, but presencing. And I think the background, because I'm really discussing this, I think is a new version of an I. Because your I is sculpted by the conditioning of this any society that you're born into. It's sculpted by, it doesn't matter what the society is. Your eye is sculpted as an interface with the society you were born into. And very early on, you learn what you can talk about and you learn what you can't talk about or shouldn't talk about. You learn what people can hear and you learn what people can't hear. And I knew when I started the spiral of being in 2014, the only real solid premise I had was that there was something rising and that there needed to be a construct like a new water to swim in that was not based in anything known, just transparency and shared field sharing. Because consciousness rises, becoming consciously conscious rises as a natural part of what we are before we start analyzing it and before we start using it to be at work about something or to create a navigational response about, because even if you say, what am I going to use this for, you're in some kind of forward movement because it takes it, you're going to have to use it for something. That means you're going to have to forward it in some way. But can you hear it at all? What I'm saying? I know it's a wrapper. I know the point today isn't. Hi, Teresa. Yay, Teresa. For those of you that don't know, Teresa, I'm featuring her today because she just went through a really scary thing and found out she could really be not as scared as she thought she might have to be because something actually worked for her. Very cool. So even our trying to self-discover, even that's been based in so we can forward ourselves in some way. So can you hear what I'm saying? That I think we're just at the beginning of having um, Heather in Vitality Medicine talks about healing as the reestablished in self. And that would be this, like being in the inner landscape of of self. But self is as I don't know, like a descriptive presence, like yeah, like a descriptive presence. So when I woke up this morning, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, uh, I came in because I'm establishing a website with one of my original names. Uh, before I got named by my beloved fungi, the dolphin, not the fungus. And the words just came so easily because I was inside my cave, being myself, not forward moving anything. Sort of like when somebody comes in your house and you say, would you like tea or coffee or a soda? Uh, why don't you sit down? Um, is the temperature good? Or like in season, my living room, if somebody came in there, they would say, we love your furniture. And we would say, well, this furniture is our mother's and our mother's furniture. And we would have a conversation about the history in our living room. And so you might talk about one of the paintings. I might talk about another of the paintings. But you understand there's no forward movement. It's just the joy of being together and plenty to talk about because there's things in our room, in our inner landscape. They reside there. Our courage resides there. Good morning. Doesn't it? Doesn't our courage reside in our inner landscape? We made it till now. Our wonder, our curiosity, and we all have stories around that. We have our stories about our courage. We have our stories. Do you see how it doesn't live in assessment? We're not assessing whether we're courageous or not because we have in this new reset, this new framing that seems to be happening, which I think is a new form of I in a culture of consciousness that's rising, independent of social culture, independent of ethnic culture, independent of historic culture, psychological culture. I think that something's happening that I can get language around, which is always exciting for me when I get language around something that I've been noticing and aware of, but had no access to languaging it until really this moment. And there are two reasons I this got stimulated in me. I'm assigning them reasons, obviously, but one of the reasons I got stimulated about this, I got curious about what was it I couldn't bring language to? What was it that I seemed to feel the presence of? And I was watching actually operative, particularly in the World of Unity call. I gotta make sure that is posted on our World of Unity Facebook page. But somebody remind me, Praline. Uh, but I've got Kevin's white hair on my face. Uh, that's a dog. Uh, but one of them was, strangely enough, was that people aren't going to work. People are trying to stay home. We could say in their cave, their inner landscape, where they feel familiar with themselves. And I work, uh, I'm kind of a mentor, well, I'm a mentor for consultants, some consultants of world organizations and over in this country, a couple of corporations. And and one of them is a health organization to support health workers. And what they're challenged by is they're challenged by participation. Nobody wants to participate in the outer world anymore. So I thought, so my question was, wow, what is that? What we just assume like it's a right wrong thing, like there's something bad about people not going to work. There's something bad about uh, all these social criteria that have been put up that seems to measure our value in a social system. But but I'm watching people become awake and conscious. So one plus one just didn't equal two, and and then I realized, oh my goodness, I think it's because our inner world, and yeah, absolutely, it could be the shutdown after COVID and people not being able to go to work. Maybe the outer world went still enough that the inner landscape, our inner landscape, could reawaken, and we don't want to lose it, even threatened with monetary challenges. Seriously cool. and I'm just really curious because I do have the comments open on my computer. I'm really curious. Yeah, I think the new way of participating with others is we just want to be with people we want to be with, don't we? And we want to be with conversations we enjoy. And that's the other thing. I mean, people, I'm finding, and people are sharing with me, that they actually, like in our, let's say, seats in my living room, we, there's a, there's types of conversations we enjoy having, and there's types that we don't. And so the second piece I want to add, which I thought was fascinating, I haven't done a seminar for over 12 years, and something called Landmark. But I decided I wanted to do one of their seminars because it deals with a new brain uh, science. And I'm also with Heather and Electra and another person, Michael. We're going to put another book together called Metabody, smaller one than the one we're publishing called You as the Mind of Creation, the Metabody of the Metamind. And one of the conversations that Electra had with me somewhere back in time, probably this last year or the year before, this last year, was that we look at things like our solar plexus and our amygdala, we look at those things negatively. Like we look at our solar plexus as fight, flight, or freeze when it's reacting, and we look at our amygdala as it's as informing from the consciousness from our brain neural plasticity informs the solar plexus when to run, freeze, or fight. But we don't talk about what it does. It doesn't, we don't talk about what it does when it's not doing that. Those two things, our amygdala and our solar plexus. So in this seminar, they were talking about that and about the amygdala, and they were talking about that the purpose of that seminar is to simply uncover self. And then the conversation that Electra and I had, which is a developing chapter in the metabody, your metabody of your metamind, um, that actually what are the physical parts of our body that actually can presence self. So that was another, like all this phenomenon of thinking coming together, which is why I'm trying to talk it this way, because I really want to promote you having a phenomenon of thinking. And it really is more about something uncovering itself in a thought process that gives you kind of awe and wonder about perhaps the establishment of self um, as the inner landscape of our being. And though we can't talk about it and we can't describe it, we can see where it resides. It's sort of like our living room. We can see where our living room resides, but you can't really talk about what a living room is. It's just a word we've applied for where we put furniture. So it came to me that, and let's see if I can get this said well, how am I doing? Is this presencing in a sculpting kind of artistic thought invoking manner what I'm saying? I'm curious because I'm finding it incredibly thought invoking, not solution invoking, because that would be forward movement, but thought invoking. So all of a sudden it came to me because I had in a former Facebook Live, and I think I also wrote a journal entry on it. I talked about the day I got the vaccine and that I had no, I didn't, I mean, up until that moment, the thought of getting, well said, see, the thought, yes, a living room. Wow, cool. But I was not getting the vaccine till the day I got the vaccine. But it didn't come from mental positioning and it didn't come from mental logic. It did not come from any mental structure at all. What it came from was that a bunch of circumstances happened, all in the space of maybe 2 hours. And my amygdala went calm, and my solar plexus went calm. And I said to um, people that could hear me, I said, oh my God, it's as if the Mother Earth, said, all's good. But then if you think about the first and second dimensions, the second dimension is like in our bodies. And if Heather's still on the line, she can help me with the atomic anatomy of this, or maybe Electra. But in our bodies, our nervous system, particularly our our nervous system, including our little amygdala and our midbrain, is basically the same molecular structure, not the cellular structure, but the same molecular structure as a reptile. And and there are other parts of our brain that are like a mammal. So we really are reptilian and not that thing like people talk about. I'm saying that, and we really are mammalian. But it all comes from quarks and atoms and molecules that make up the planet herself. In other words, we're part of the nervous system of the planet herself. That's our first dimension. It's the first dimension of forming, form forming. You've just got to think this with me because it's so bloody cool. So, and they were describing this in the seminar, and all of a sudden it hit me that then it made sense to me that I could use a thought provoking metaphor. That all I can tell you is that I could feel in my body that I was good to go to get the vaccine that day because there was no fight or flight, there was no freeze, there was this calm, like I'd returned, like what was present were the first two dimensions of my being, forming into form, and that forming into form informed me that I was good to go. I was just good to go, that there was no challenge to my form. It was informing me that there was no challenge to my form at an atomic, molecular, cellular, living level. But even in my speaking that day, I had the Mother Earth out there, looking out at her, informing me where I was standing at the mouth of the cave. But that wasn't what happened at all. I was the earth. My body, I body me, was the earth, the cave, the inner landscape that was present to at a response level that all was good to go. Okay, I'm going to try for the last one, okay? So we're guided to not only when we look outward, we're guided to our first, we've been trained to look for harm. That's why There's been a huge industries that market trauma recovery, recovery from harm. But imagine, sorry, it's telling me that I'm losing. Oh no, I'm good. Hold on a minute. No idea. Uh, but uh, but but what if we our brain switched and we were content in our cave? Then when we walk to the mouth of our cave, the cave being the metaphor for our inner landscape, when we walk to the mouth of our cave, then we wouldn't be our 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 systemic dimensional state beingness formed from the molecules of all creation would not be looking to looking afraid of harm, expecting the possibility of harm. This is what I'm getting to. I'm thinking of some conversations Praline had with me and about it's almost like we're looking that our systemically our little amygdala and our bigger solar plexus are are in a molecular atomic system made up of the earth and what created all her forms, literally monitoring calm. But here's the tricky part: when you go to talk it, we talk it as either or. Like, I don't want to have those kind of conversations anymore. But what if those kind of, like, I don't want to have conversations about making people wrong or there's an enemy. I'm just using myself right now. Or it's just, I just don't want to have those conversations. Yesterday we had a young girl, Paulina, come. She called me text me out of the blue and said, I have bulbs. Do you want me to plant bulbs in your yard? And I said yes. I hadn't even thought about planting bulbs for the next spring in my yard. So she brought daffodils and tulips and uh, let's start with the paper white lilies and yellow lilies and amaryllis and one other. Anyway, so we just planted them everywhere. And then she said $309. And I went, okay, because it just wasn't coming from threat or harm. And I had $309 cash on me. And Bitsy had just happened to give me the morning before. So it just didn't lay out. And in other words, systemically, something was shifting in the landscape of how existence was occurring that didn't lead with avoidance of trauma. But systemically, something was leading with, I guess you could say, paradise. Paradise. And we aren't doing this. We wouldn't know how. So the amygdala and the solar plexus, I think, are in an evolutionary curve. Maybe the whole body, but those are the ones that, hyperstimulated, are always looking for harm. The possibility of harm, the possibility of danger. And I think they're calming down because the inner landscape of creation, which is, if you think of the spiral, what if some of the dimensions are getting stronger, like our dream states are getting stronger, aren't they? And the physical 3D, so we could say that the first and second dimensions are in a shift of conscious, shifting back into a paradise, the paradise consciousness that this planet was formed in, and we're part of the molecular, cellular atoms of that consciousness. We are. And including our little amygdala solar plexus, that if we were little sheep lying down by the lion, we would have good sense because our little amygdala and our little our bigger solar plexus would stimulate us when the lion started salivating. And we would say goodbye, see you later. It was lovely to spend time with you, but you know, you're hungry, and we know that you have primitive forces that you might eat your friend before I could get my I could get myself out of the way. Very different reality than the one being promoted, is it not? So I am watching the first and second dimensional consciousness restoring itself to its, like our amygdala tells us we're happy. That's its primary function. And then every now and then it says, you're not happy, like the lion salivating. So then we have this spiral, and then we have the fourth dimension, the dream state, the astral travel state, that it's all going like a toroidal field, literally restoring the third dimension back to its right alignment with creation, where we're standing creation. Because I don't know if you know, we are a creation, but we actually are a creation. We actually are. It's fascinating. And so the point I want to make is that it isn't there isn't a conversation about what to do. It's more a conversation of what is occurring, and being and trusting our system, trusting that we're evolving systemically, and that our consciousness is restoring systemically, and that we're not just mental thinking. Probably mental thinking will take a while. Like this morning when I realized that everything I think, I look to see how I can apply it, how I can move something forward with it. And that how much of just being here I was missing doing that. And then Kevin, let's see if I can show you Kevin. Let's see if we can see him. There's Kevin. Is that you? Are you looking at people? There he is. Yes, I have you on the screen. I do. Is there anything you want to say? But Kevin this morning, he went in C's and Alfie's room to sleep. And then I came out, and he was on the Victorian sofa out in the living room. And then he walked me back in here, because I have a sofa bed in here, to my office. And he got up on the sofa bed so that I would get up on the sofa bed with him, and he could have all these places. It is his paradise. Quite an inner landscape our boy has. Yes. I think he knows I'm talking. And he brought me my pants this morning so I could get dressed. Paradise. So the purpose of this conversation is the conversation itself. And I think the hardest part is just to notice how we're always trying to forward something, because that's the programming. That's how we got constituted. We're always trying to figure out what to do, just because that's how we got constituted from the day we were born. And that we're being either reconstituted or unconstituted. It always reminds me of this um, song. Uh, and the words go. Let me see if I can. Sorry. Let me see if I can do this. But it says I can't fall down because I'm already standing on the ground. Maybe we're now standing on the ground, and maybe sorry, I now have a low battery. I'll be right back because I had unplugged from the wall. Good to go. Yeah, Kevin with Keven. His whole name is Kevin Feather Shakira because I'm going to get a video of him walking because he has very feminine hips that swing from side to side in a very cute way. So that's really what I wanted to presence today. I wanted to see how well I could articulate something that's occurring, something that I'm watching unfold, and that more than likely will never. I pay attention to human consciousness, so I have spent time developing a language articulation skill for that. But you can too. You can develop. Yeah, well said, Lori. Yeah, he's a res dog heaven. He still likes to try to jump out of car windows and corral cars by getting in front of them to have them stop. So far, so good. But I'm just very curious. I'm very curious if we can get in the I don't know, not really get in the but kind of get in the mood of this. Get in the mood of yeah, peaceful easy feeling because I'm already standing on the ground. That is how your amygdala and solar plexus are designed to work, with only every now and then warnings that don't step in a hole or don't trip over a rock. But it's not the primary consideration. The primary consideration is peaceful, easy feeling. Imagine. Imagine that we have a human mental mind that is having the opportunity to perceive something rising within us systemically, and that we are possibly finding ourselves addressing it and exploring it and curious about it. And that very possibly that curiosity and not really trusting everything we think or say, or at least examining that what we think or say may be best in how, may be um, based in how we had been taught to perceive. And that if it doesn't fit, if it doesn't resonate, that we just don't know what's happening. And that we stay curious. Because it doesn't really matter it doesn't really matter. You know, the thing that has been such a hardship for human beings is that we got born into a world where we were having to protect and defend ourselves, this inner kingdom. And we developed a lot of coping skills and we developed a lot of ways of being in the face of that, kind of like our own PTSD. So it's going to take a minute or two. And there's a whole acting out in the world around us. There's a lot of acting out that trauma-based system. But the planet isn't designed to forward trauma. She's always resetting the field on behalf of all life. And we're part of her. And I think this is where maybe religion started, the old religions, where people were in the wonder. They created altars to bring part of their harvest in to the mother, because they were just in wonder at what she provided. Boy, I could really go down a tunnel on this one. I don't think I'm going to do that. There'll be a lot to talk about on the iMagi call this month. It'll be fun. But I think that's what's happening. This is like a version of 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 that wonder, like I couldn't believe my amygdala was completely calm, and my solar plexus was not only calm, it was an opening to bring something into existence not based on trauma or fear of future or fear of harm. And I think that there's a phrase I'd like to complete our time together, because all these things are standing out to me. It's like if you've ever seen one of those pictures where a lion is in the grass, but you can only see the grass, and then suddenly you can see the lion. It suddenly becomes visible, and then it never goes invisible again. But there's this document in the United States of America, and it says, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men, meaning men and women, are created equal. And I thought, wow, self-evident. Truths that are self-evident, that become unmistakable. And they become. We don't do them. They become. And then that becoming begins to have a cultural norm, even if it's just a few people in the beginning. It's still a culture. It might not be a worldwide culture norm, or even a country culture norm, but it can become a people culture norm. It can be that. So we could say today, with Tantra unpacking something and speaking about this inner landscape that I'm seeing unfold and trying to bring language and articulation to, and metaphor and presencing and all that there's a really good chance that this is a truth that will become self-evident. Just really possible. And I think it's why people aren't, a certain culture of consciousness is going through a kind of metaphoric, a shift of mind, because that culture of consciousness is part of a new system, cultural system rising. And because we've never existed there, we can't, we don't know what it'll be like, except like when I had a moment of waking up bright and shiny at 3 a.m. in the morning, and able to be with my thinking in a manner that I realized I wasn't thinking in the same manner anymore. I wasn't even, that I could observe, remembering a nature of thinking that was always trying to forward everything in some manner or apply it in some manner, but that I seemed to be in an empty space where maybe another kind of thinking could occur that was more about, I don't know, describing my living room, my inner landscape. And what would I like to leave you with? I'd like to leave you with thinking yourself in your inner landscape, like thinking your courage and your inquiry, and thinking 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 you in a way that's heavenly, wonderful, because you got to hear through your strength, stamina, capacity. And wouldn't it be lovely to take time for that inward landscape to have some notoriety in you? Wouldn't that be great as a possibility? And also, more than likely, it would be a way to dislodge this sort of analysis, analyzing ourselves all the time, thinking, or trying to just look outside the cave, or but turning around and dwelling inwardly in the wonder of you that got you to here. Because something extraordinary got you, some things, some thought forms, some qualities, something of great value got you to here. And it lives in your inner landscape. And what Heather said earlier about love, maybe that's part of our inner landscape, is that something that was driving us, that we loved, kept driving us to carry on. And maybe we'll never know the something, but we could pay attention to that there was this thing called the love of something not yet found or worthy of life that had us carry on. So this is this month is the last month of the year. Everything for me in December up through the prophetics in January are all about setting the field for the future before us, since human beings are the culture of consciousness within which human futures rise. And I want to thank you all for being here today. I actually went a whole hour, which is not my norm, but today it is. Take precious care. It's just been awesome being in my inner landscape with you. See you later.